So we're on the back side of the property here today, and we kind of have a base camp set up here. So I got my big cooler, my big Coleman grill, and then behind the camera, I also have my pickup truck, which is also full of gear. So I've been getting a lot of questions on my snapping turtles. How do you cook them? What are you doing with them? So today we're going to cook some snapping turtle, and we're going to cook it kind of like you would like a beef stew. So to go along with that, I have my large bush pot here. So I'm going to adjust that camera and show you guys some of the contents within this bush pot. So we can go ahead and open up our bush pot here. And I really like to try to take advantage of all the area of storage that I have. So my bush pot, I like to fill it up here. But now I got a medicine container here from a past prescription. And inside of that, I have all these little containers that I purchased off Amazon. And each one of these have a different spice in there. So I got my salt, garlic, onion powder, pepper, and I also have a mixed seasoning, which is like a dry blend for like steak seasoning, but it goes really well on just about anything. Also in my bush pot, I have my butter. I have some Just Add Water biscuit mix. So we're gonna try to make a loaf of bread with that, or a large biscuit today. I got some bouillon cubes. And just to make this stuff a little easier, I went ahead and prepared a lot of the food before coming out into the field here. So I got a bag of flour, I got my onions that are already chopped up, and I also have a pretty large bag of red potatoes and carrots, which I've already washed them up and processed. And then of course I got my snapping turtle inside the cooler. So let's get our frying pan going and we'll toss our turtle on. So in our snapping turtle stew here, I want to go ahead and bread our turtle before we put it on the skillet. And so that's going to add a lot of flavor to it, and it's also going to make your stew just a little bit thicker. So I'm going to add a little bit of flour to my plate here. And then we'll add our turtle nuggets to it, and we'll kind of mix it around, get them a good coating. So we're just going to mix this up, let that moisture get absorbed up, make sure you got a good coating of flour on there. So at this point, I got some of that flour on there. I want to go ahead and open up my seasonings here. And we'll start putting a little bit of seasoning on this batter, so that way that batter gets kind of cooked together with our seasoning. So I got some garlic powder. And of course, this is just like add to whatever you guys like. I'm going to add some pepper, some salt, onion powder, and then we can toss it on the skillet. In the meantime, I'm going to mix this up a little bit more, but I want to go ahead and put my skillet on the hot flame and put a little bit of olive oil on there. And so that way when we put our turtle in that frying pan, we get a nice sear. So we're not trying to cook this turtle all the way through. We're just trying to sear the outside of it before we put it into our bush pot. So we'll start adding our snapping turtle. And keep in mind, if you want this stuff to brown real evenly, give yourself a little bit of space between your meat. So our turtle is done being browned up. So I got this bush pot here, and I'm going to put this turtle in the bush pot. Now inside this bush pot, I got about 2 inches of water, and this is going to fluctuate a little bit because I want to put this in there and start warming it up. And I'm also going to toss in these bouillon cubes. But now depending on how much meat you have and how much vegetable you have, you'll kind of have to change that water a little bit depending on how thick you want your stew. The other thing I want to do is we have all these little niblets and stuff in the bottom of the skillet. We want to go ahead and try to pick those up. So you could use like deglaze it like with some wine or something if you want. We're not that fancy. So we're going to put a little bit of water in there and let that boil for a second or steam. And that way we could scrape the bottom of that skillet and get all those little nidbits up and put it inside our bush pot. So while that's heating up, I'm going to toss my bouillon cubes in there. So like I said, I'm going to let this warm up. We'll dump it into our bush pot, and then we'll take you guys to the next step. So we have our turtle in the water with the bouillon cubes, and that's starting to simmer. So I want to go ahead and take my potatoes and carrots and get those ready. And I like to cook these a little bit separate. I feel that if you simmer each one of these or saute each one of these individually, it adds like layers of flavor to your stew. Now I got some olive oil in here right now, but I'll probably finish it off with a little bit of butter. So for our seasonings, this is just a seasoned blend, so it's got a little bit of everything in it. Garlic, salt, pepper, a little bit of spice to it. But I like to season each one of these individually, and then by the time they finish off in the big pot, everything will have a nice good flavor to it. So as our potatoes are starting to cook down and get nice and golden brown, we'll start tossing that into our bush pot. As we give this a little space, it'll allow those potatoes to brown up a little bit faster and better. Now that our potatoes are all done here, look nice and brown, we'll put that into our bush pot, and we'll have to saute our onions in. We'll toss our onions in. Now for our onions, we want to get them translucent and just a little bit brown, but we won't put this into our bush pot until it's getting really close to being done. So our onions here have a nice little bit of golden brown to them. We'll go ahead and put that into our bush pot. And so now I want to make some gravy, or kind of like a roux. So we're going to put a little bit of water into our skillet here. And we'll start adding our flour. Now for our flour, you want to add just a little bit at a time. And we'll try not to get it too clumpy, but if it does get clumpy on you, we can go ahead and just keep whisking it, and as you whisk it, those clumps will start breaking down. So as those clumps start breaking down, just go ahead and add a little bit more flour to it. And we have our heat setting here as low as it goes. So as we're cooking, if that heat starts to become too much, you can just grab your pan and take it off that heat and bring it back as you need it. So we want to make sure we don't burn our flour here. We want to make sure it's nice and smooth and we don't have no big clumps in there. That looks perfect right there. No clumps, nice and smooth. Has a real good consistency to it. So we'll add this to our turtle stew here, and we'll continue to let this cook down. And this is going to give you a nice thick kind of gravy consistency to it. And it really kind of goes on taste. The more thick that you like this, add less water and more gravy. Or if you like it more soup kind of consistency, just add more water to it. So I want to make a large biscuit to go along with our turtle stew here. So I got this Biscuits Just Add Water biscuit mix here. And you need about a half a cup of water. I'm gonna put the whole thing into my frying pan here. Add a little bit of water at a time and just keep mixing it until I get the right consistency. As I'm adding this, if it gets too dry, I'll just put a little bit more water in it. Just make sure you go slow with it, because you don't want to add too much water. If you guys want to help support this channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for all notifications. Also in that drop down box below is my Amazon influencer page. So I got this small baking dish here, but you want to go ahead and put some lubrication on here. So I got some spray pan, you could use lard, butter, whatever it is you got. I'm gonna coat that with it. I'm gonna put a little bit of flour in there and shake it around, kind of give the pan a coating. That little bit of extra we have in there, we'll just toss out. So now we can add our biscuit mix to our pan. We'll spread it out a little bit, kind of make it consistent level as far as thickness goes. So now that we got our biscuit mix in our pan, I'll show you guys how to make a little miniature oven. So I got another bush pot here. So I want to put my bush pot on here and kind of balance it in between the grates. I also have a little grill top here. So put that grill in there and we'll slide our pan right on top of that. So after we put our lid on here, we'll close the handle, kind of locks it in place. And we'll try to get our temperature as low as it can. So we'll get it all balanced up. We'll let it sit there for a while. We'll come back in about 10 minutes and check it. So over here in the background, you guys could see I got Adam Jr. So he laid down in the hammock and fell asleep here. But I think our bread here is done. Or our biscuit rather. Now one thing I did off camera that you guys didn't see is I took that biscuit out and I flipped it over so that way I could cook both sides of it. So I gotta try to flip this thing without dumping it all over. So I think if I put my cutting board on there, that went pretty smooth right there. There we go. So it looks really good. It's got a nice golden brown bottom to it. The top's got a little bit of brownness to it. Let's go ahead and cut a piece off. We'll take a look at it. See how it looks. And this thing's super hot right now. But you guys can see it's got that buttery, flaky crust inside, or bread inside. Looks super good. So we're just about ready to eat here. I also took my stew off. So my stew's been sitting on the side, starting to cool down here. But I'll see if I can get some of this put into our bowl here. Again, without making too much of a mess. All right, we got our bowl served up here. We'll put our bread next to it. Oh, kind of broke on me. And that bread could soak up some of that gravy there, that broth. It's gonna be super good. So to start off with, we're gonna go ahead and taste this, but I'm gonna try the turtle first. I got a nice big chunk of turtle meat. That's so good, guys. So I already know you guys are wondering, what does that turtle taste like? It's pretty hard to describe. It's a little bit of a cross between a chicken, a cross between beef, and then just kind of a reptile texture to it, if you will, maybe like frog legs. But it's super, super good. It's an absolutely delicious meal. If you guys haven't tried it, you are missing out. It is kind of a lot of work to prepare your turtle as far as catching it and processing it. But man, it's so worth it. It tastes so good. So thanks for joining us on our cookout today as we made some snapping turtle stew. Hopefully you guys decide to try it on your own, and we'll catch you next time.